Well, good morning, everyone. We're back in John. This time we're going to be in John chapter number 6. And what I want to do is I want to look at this passage because I think oftentimes we misunderstand our circumstances, or we can't see how God could do something with what little we have and how large the circumstance might be. And this John chapter number 6 account is actually very famous because of the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes. But I want you to see something here in the first few verses. Starting with verse number 1 of chapter number 6 of John, it says, "After these things Jesus went over the Sea of Galilee, which is the Sea of Tiberias, and a great multitude followed him because they saw his miracles which he did on them that were diseased." This is obviously speaking of the days beforehand. And Jesus went up into the mountain and there sat with his disciples, and the Passover feast of the Jews was nigh. And so Jesus isn't even really teaching at this point. He's sitting with his disciples and hasn't given a message. In fact, in this particular day, the message will come after the food. In verse number 5, it says, "When Jesus then lifted up his eyes and he saw a great company come unto him, he saith unto Philip, Whence shall we buy bread that these may eat? And this he said to prove him, for he himself knew what he would do. And Philip answered him, 200 pennyworth of bread is not sufficient for them, and everyone may take a little." And so one of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter, Peter's brother, said unto him, "There is a lad here with the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes, but what are these among so many?" And Jesus said, "Make the men to sit down." And so we see this great occurrence here. Jesus really isn't even engaging with the crowd. They're gathered because of what he did the days before. And he sees them and he has compassion on them. And he says to his disciples, "Hey, what should we do?" Well, mathematically speaking, there's absolutely no way. They don't have enough money and they don't have enough time, and there really isn't a place to get enough resources in time to feed these people. And so the disciples are just like, there's nothing we can do. But Jesus asked the question because he knew what he was going to do. Isn't that powerful? See, when we think about our own circumstances, we think of what we're going to do, and we think of what we can't possibly do. But Jesus thinks in terms of what he knows he's going to do. And so we see this circumstance where he's got these 5 loaves and these 2 fishes. He tells them to sit down. Well, I want you to understand the difference between what we can do and what God can do. Had the men just simply handed out food until they ran out, they'd have probably gotten to maybe 12, 14 people. Had they used all their money, they would have maybe gotten to 50, 60 people, maybe, if they had enough money and enough time. But Jesus blesses the food that they have. And then notice in verse number 12 how far it went. It says, "And when they were filled, he said unto his disciples, Gather up the fragments that remain, that nothing be lost. Therefore they gathered them together and filled 12 baskets with the fragments of the 5 barley loaves." Now that's powerful. He didn't just provide enough food, he provided more food than they could eat so that he could show them that it was miracle food by what was left. They had more bread left than they started with. And so he goes on and says, "Which remained over and above them that had eaten. Then those men, when they had seen the miracle that Jesus did, said, This is of a truth, that prophet that should come into the world." And so they said, this has got to be Messiah. The proof was in the miracle. And I wonder how many of us are looking at our circumstances and saying, wow, if only God would provide, we could do something, but we'll just go ahead and do what we can with what we have left. Well, Jesus knows what he's going to do, and he's waiting for people to trust him. The disciples sat the men down. They had a feeling that God was going to do something big. And so they went ahead and had everybody sit down as if they had enough. A lot of people will look past that because in other times they don't have enough faith and they're shocked by what God does. But I got to tell you, as a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ, we got to stop being shocked by God coming through. You've got to stop waiting until after we've done everything we know to do and we've exhausted even the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes before we even consult the Lord. Let's start going to the Lord and trusting Him. Let's not walk by sight. The men saw the large crowd. They saw the little money. They saw the small amount of food. And they said, we can't do this. And Jesus said, but we can. And so I want to encourage you this morning. We need to start walking by faith. We need to start trusting the Lord that He will come through for us. No matter what we're doing, if we're walking with God and we don't have enough, God already knows what He's going to do. So I want to encourage you with that. God knows what He's going to do. We just have to be willing to let Him do it. And so that comes when we trust Him, that we stop walking by sight and we start walking by faith. So I want to encourage you with that today, that no matter what you're facing, if you're walking with God, I mean, truly obeying the Lord, you have enough. He will make it last. And so trust in that today. Be encouraged by that today. And I hope that that causes you to have a much better day. Enjoy.